Thank you for joining us for the Winter Soccer Playoffs 2020-21 update. We're here with Brian Buntsmeyer. I'm the Executive Director of TAPS, and our Associate Director, Robert Huckabee. We're going to walk you through some details, a few changes that have been put in place today as we get ready to continue the Winter Soccer Playoffs, which will culminate in our championships shortly. So, Winter Soccer 2021, we're going to hit the big pause button based on the polar vortex and the idea of COVID still hanging around, making it difficult for some of our schools to participate in that first round. So winter soccer, we're hitting the big pause button. We're going to slow down. That's going to result in some calendar changes. So here are the calendar changes. The number one thing you'll need to do, this will be posted on the TAPS website, www.taps.biz. Click on athletics, click on soccer, and you'll see that post. You'll also have a post on the homepage. So we are pausing the action by district. We'll now move the certification deadline February the 18th. Area round, February 20, regionals, February 23rd, the semifinals, February 27th, and the championships for both boys and girls are shown as March 1 and March 2. The championship webinar for the final four teams will be February the 26th. We'll be giving information on what to expect at the championships at that time. The all-state selection meeting is still to be determined what time and what format as we move through these pandemic times. The all-state selection meeting, again, to be determined, it will be at the Belmead Civic Center in Waco. It will be live if we can possibly hold it. Each district must have a representative, and make sure you have your statistics ready for the season, the district, and the postseason. Your academic all-state nominations are due March the 4th. After the all-district selection meeting, juniors and seniors, first or second team all-district with a cumulative GPA of 90 or better are eligible. Deadline March 4th. Where do I get that form? www.taps.biz. Click on athletics, click on soccer, and there you will have the academic all-state selection form ready for you to use. Weather is another concern. That's what's making this pause possible right now. So lightning, if you're at a stadium that has a sensor or predictor, make sure you follow the sensor or predictor in its return to play protocol. If you're there without a sensor or predictor, you're going to have to use the old-fashioned flashbang method. 30 minutes after a 10-mile strike, that's when you can return to the pitch. So if you have a lightning strike, that last lightning strike within 10 miles, you're going to have to wait 30 minutes before returning to play. The temperature in North Texas is dropping steadily as it is across the state. So 32 degrees, that's the jumping off line. So 32 degrees, ambient or adjusted prior to game time is going to cause that game to be canceled or suspended. So 32 degrees, ambient or adjusted prior to game time, we're not going to play those games this year. Precipitation, if it's raining and raining hard prior to the game, the two teams can agree to delay. Once the contest starts, then it's up to the official. If the referee one says play on, then play on. Field conditions are the same. Prior to the game, the two teams can agree to play or not play on the field of choice. During and immediately prior to the contest, once the officials show up, it's their decision. Robert, talk to us a little bit about the game specifics.
All right, thank you, Brian. As you continue to work through details for your upcoming contest, just some things to be mindful of. We talked about the dates, the new dates. We'll show those again at the end of the webinar, so you'll have those, giving you a little bit of relief and some time to get those games in. Remember, those must be played no later than those dates, and those will be updated on the TAPS calendar. You may play earlier if the two teams can agree and work out those details. You can always play earlier than that playoff date, but not later. Please follow those dates that will be posted on the calendar. Location, those are noted on the bracket. The higher seed is the host in many of those situations, the early rounds. Then we move to neutral sites, and those are noted on the bracket as well. You may run into situations where neutral sites may be difficult to find. That's been the case this year in some situations in some areas of the state. If that becomes the case, remember, you always have the option to flip for home and away. The two teams involved always should be able to find a place and time to play. That would be your last resort. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, but you certainly could do that by agreement or flip. The time of the contest must be by mutual agreement or a coin flip. And remember, when you're talking about time, especially if you're the host team, please give consideration to those teams that are traveling. There are many matchups we have especially as we get into the later rounds that have a lot of travel involved. And please give consideration to the time of the game for that team that is doing the traveling. Also on gate, remember, you don't have to charge gate. That's between the two schools to agree. But if you do, it must be agreed upon. And remember, you can't charge more than the rate for a state game. That would be $10 in this instance. Brian?
Robert, what's going to happen if we say it's a neutral site game and both teams have done their due diligence, but they're unable to come to an agreement or locate somebody that will host that game? What's going to happen then? I think in volleyball, we went to a coin flip if it couldn't happen. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on that.
If you absolutely cannot find a neutral site, or if you have two neutral sites and you can't agree, we will flip a coin for you. If you don't agree to flip for home and away, and you can certainly agree to flip for that, and we'll flip that coin for you as well. Just reach out to the TAPS office. We'll get everybody on the phone. We'll flip that coin for you so you can work out those details.
If it was scheduled as a neutral site game, it's not going to go to the higher seed. It's going to be a neutral site coin flip if you can't work it through. So I just wanted to make sure we were clear on that as we get a little farther, because this year the regionals and the semifinals are both a neutral site contest. All right, let's talk a little bit about the officials. Make sure the officials are TASO or TAPS approved chapters. That should have been happening all year, but it's definitely important to do right now during the playoffs. We require a 3-man crew in the playoffs. That's an R1 and 2 ARs. If for some reason the chapter you choose cannot get that 3-man crew, you can agree, if both teams agree in writing prior to the contest, you can use a 2-man crew. However, TAPS rules and requirements are a 3-person crew where at all possible. The assignment of the crew, mutually agreed upon chapter. It's not just the home team's decision, because if you're the traveling team and you're playing at somebody else's place and they can get officials and you both agree to that, that's a great thing. This makes it easy on everybody. If you can't and you move to the next closest chapter, then both teams, by making that decision, you'll both agree on the chapter you're going to use, and then you're both going to pay half of the fees and half of the travel costs to get them there. So the farther out you go, sometimes the fees go up, the travel costs obviously are going to go up, and both of you are agreeing to pay half of that extended variety. I will say, don't call the TAPS office for us to get you in a chapter. It's up to you to determine. We can flip a coin there as well. You pick a chapter, they pick a chapter, and away you go. And a payment of officials should be by one team, and make sure you pay that promptly. Don't both of you bring half. It's always easier for one team to pay up front and then bill the other team as necessary. Usually the home team, if it's not a neutral site, needs to pay all of those expenses. So officials, most important part of the game, TASO or TAPS approved chapters.
All right, game details. Remember, it's important for us to know what those game details are. As soon as you get them worked out, let us know here in the TAPS office. Email those details of us, time, place, location, all that information to the office here, info@taps.biz. We'll get those quickly, and we'll get those brackets updated as quickly as we can. Once the contest has been played, remember, report those scores in rank 1 on ScoreStream, and for the playoffs, email those to us as well, info@taps.biz. That's the quickest way for us to see those, get those, and get those brackets updated. So you'll know those next matchups, and all your fans will be able to track that throughout the playoffs.
So part of the reason that we're taking this pause is the weather. The other part is going to be COVID-19, and the pandemic continues its presence here. So the general TAPS protocols for fans: masks are required inside the stadium at all times when not drinking, eating, or physically distancing more than 6 feet. We would really like it after being at swim. I think we would all agree, if you were there, we need to wear our mask at all times. It just makes it easier on everybody, and it will help us all get to the next round. So masks for fans are required. General protocols for the participants as we're in the playoffs and we are moving towards the championships. Masks are required by all players and personnel on the sidelines, on the pitch, unless you are actively warming up or in the contest. Warming up, cooling down, or in the contest, mask is not required but may be worn if the school chooses. And masks are required by all personnel who are on the sidelines, meaning coaches, assistant coaches, managers, trainers, and those players not on the pitch. So unless you're warming up, cooling down, or in the contest, we're going to have a mask on when we're in that stadium. Robert, tell us about the COVID affirmation that we should have been using, but we definitely need to be using now that we're in the playoffs.
Thank you, Brian. Yes, remember as you prepare for your playoff games, same process we've been using all year for all of our contests that have been played, regular season and playoffs. The coaches or ADs for each school will certify on the day of the game that all of their coaches, players, and team personnel, that's managers, trainers, everyone you have associated with your team, you will confirm on game day that all those participants do not have COVID, they do not have the COVID symptoms, nor have they had recent close contact with anyone who has. The home team would be the team responsible to make sure that those affirmations are secured from the officials and all other volunteers or personnel essential to the playing of the contest. In the instance of a neutral site, the team that is actually making those arrangements, reaching out to the officials chapter, that's the school that would be responsible to receive those affirmations from the officials and those people as well. So keep that in mind as we work through the playoffs. Everyone wants to show up to those games knowing that everyone involved in the contest has self-screened for those conditions and are good to go on game day.
And again, Robert, these COVID affirmations should have been happening all year long. They're definitely an important part, especially if you have to go back to tracing or tracking to know exactly who has been there, but also know that before you got there, the coach is saying, hey, everybody on my side safe, everybody on your side safe. Is that correct?
That is correct. And as you move to the championship, for those who make it to the championship, as we have all year, we will be securing those on game day for those championship games.
So the COVID protocols, the school agreement, if you're hosting, make sure that if you have different protocols or pretty strict protocols, make sure that the visiting school knows all of your procedures and protocols, where to come in, where to go out, whether or not they're going to have a locker room available, the whole idea of even providing water at this point. Are you going to do that or not do that? So that we can all stay safe and secure. The protocols in place for teams and fans, again, you can't be less restrictive than the TAPS protocols. TAPS protocols are going to require all fans have a mask if possible, unless socially distanced. And again, all the players and the teams on the sideline, unless you're actively participating in warm-ups, cool down, or in the contest itself on the pitch, you need to have a mask on when you're on the sidelines. Neutral sites, as we found out at swim, some of our host requirements were a little more strict than TAPS, and sometimes TAPS was a little more strict, but in the end, you take the strictest of the two. So you cannot be less restrictive than the TAPS requirements. However, that neutral site may require you to be a little more conscious as far as where you wear a mask, when you sanitize, whether you have a locker room, et cetera, et cetera. So make sure you know the neutral site goals, and both schools must agree to those protocols before they move forward. We're going to finish it up real quick. TAPS Winter Soccer 2021. Remember, the official ball is the Wilson Forte. Make sure you have a few of those. The worse the weather gets, the more you need. If you have questions, this is a taped webinar. Info, info at taps.biz. And if you need us on the phone number, 254-947-9268. We're going to leave you with the dates up here once again. Some of you have already played the by-district. Some of you may have already played area. Hit the big pause button like everybody else. So, by-district certification, certified by the 18th of February. Area certification by the 20th. The regional certification deadline, February 23rd. The semifinals should be done by the 27th. And then the boys championship and the girls championships are tentatively scheduled for March the 1st and March the 2nd. Our championship webinar for the Final Four teams, if you do make it that far, make sure you join us on February the 26th. Again, these will all be posted on the TAPS website, www.taps.biz. They'll show up on the homepage on the right-hand side, or you can go to athletics, click on Winter Soccer, and you'll see them there. Thank you for joining us for this webinar. Robert, do you have any concluding thoughts as we move forward?
Please stay safe.
Stay safe both in your travel on the pitch and on the travel home. We appreciate everything you're doing. Coaches, you're doing a great job. Student athletes are doing a great job. Administrators, you're doing a great job. We just have to work together to get the championships of Winter Soccer 2021 complete. Thank you again for joining us for this webinar. If you have questions, please email us at info@taps.biz. And that will conclude this webinar session.